4 to 6 weeks ago that they're going to start requiring users to identify themselves via ID and shutting off people who don't present IDs in countries they allow. Now, this appears to be a little bit too late for the US regulators. And for all we know, they've been negotiating with the US regulators on a settlement for a while. And those negotiations probably broke down. I'm guessing that the negotiations were more or less of the problem, were more or less of the kind of, hey, shut the service down, give the money back, and we won't indict you or something like that. I have no idea. But be clear on this. A lot of the viewers here also work in crypto or want to be cryptocurrency entrepreneurs. Right? If you're outside the US, that does not make you free of US regulation. Okay? The extraterritorial or the non-US centric application of US financial law now knows no borders and no limits. So if you work in crypto and you haven't lawyered up or your firm hasn't lawyered up, you are crazy. Okay? Even if you're a major holder in crypto, it's worth getting access to a good cryptocurrency lawyer to advise you on what you're doing. Okay? This is not a fear tactic, it's just a fact of life. Okay? So the other thing that's been interesting is Bitmex is sitting on $2 billion worth of cryptocurrency via multi-sig. Okay. Now, in theory, nobody should be able to take that crypto because it requires multiple signatures, and we'll see what happens. So far, Bitcoin the price hasn't missed a beat. We seem to be good to go. But a couple of things about Bitmex, right? I think that Bitmex is look. I don't have a personal problem with Bitmex. I wish they had done things differently so that they were still running without U.S. regulatory issues. It probably would have been possible for them to operate within, a regulated model in the U.S. They chose not to do that. I hope it works out for them personally, but it's going to be pretty ugly for a while. A couple of points about Bitmex, right? Remember in March when the price of Bitcoin tanked when the U.S. market sold off because of COVID? I believe that sell-off was wildly exacerbated because of Bitmex and because of liquidations associated with how Bitmex perpetual contracts work. Bitmex went down in the middle of the day. I think it was March 12th when that sell-off was happening. If Bitmex hadn't gone down, I think we might have actually seen $1,000 Bitcoin just because of the way that the liquidations were happening. Okay, so I also understand that we're still having problems with YouTube. I apologize. We will get the recording up. I'm going to plow ahead with the show, and we get about half our viewers there. So again, I apologize for that. We're working on it. The recording will go up later. Okay. So, this is, personally, I think Bitmex should be allowed to exist, and I think the rule should be caveat emptor, which, Latin for buyer beware. That is not the world we live in. So we have to deal with it. End of story. My personal feelings on this don't matter at all. Okay. So again, I also think this is going to be a boon to other regulated cryptocurrency futures exchanges. And I think their volumes were already going up significantly before this episode. And I think that this will accelerate that. Right. And some of the quotes back and forth between Bitmex and DOJ and others were wild. So yesterday will go down as kind of another Mt. Gox-like day in the annals of Bitcoin. What's very encouraging to me is that the price of Bitcoin did not really miss a beat. It definitely came down a little bit earlier in the day, came down a little bit yesterday with the Trump news, but honestly, it's been very resilient. And I'll show you the chart in a few minutes when we get into the updates on Abra. So the other thing I would be very clear on is a lot of you asked me about my thoughts on DeFi. Let's talk about DeFi for a second, right? So I have a lot of concerns about DeFi and regulation in the short term. I think that this should be considered a warning shot for DeFi service providers who think that the regs don't apply to them. That's just pure nonsense. And those service providers need to lawyer up now, right? And so the biggest problem with DeFi services is the D part, the DE, the decentralized part. Most of them are either not decentralized, not sufficiently decentralized, or not as decentralized as they would think. If there's an off switch and you're running a service that has no idea who your customers are, and those customers reside in the United States, you have a major problem. Major problem. You need to lawyer up now. And the only good news for users is that your funds aren't locked up online, or at least not in the service provider's wallets. Okay, but tread carefully. And if you're working in the DeFi space and you haven't lawyered up, now's a good time to pick up the phone and call your trusty securities and commodities lawyers. Okay, enough about that. And by the way, one last point though, oracles are a major problem. I've talked about smart contract oracles, I think 4 out of the last 5 shows. I'm not going to talk about it again, except to say they're a major weak link in the DeFi chain that hasn't been solved and needs to be solved if this problem is ever going to go away. And I have no idea how they're ultimately going to solve that problem. We'll see. Companies like Chainlink are trying, as I mentioned, and we'll see what happens. Okay. So let's see. Enough on the government and Bitmex. So let's get back to Abra. So I think this is a really interesting time in the investing world. I think a lot about personal allocation, right? How should I, and I know all of you do because it's a very common question we get. How should I allocate my investment dollars across crypto, stocks, cash, anything else? And the question really, it almost doesn't matter whether you're investing $100 or $100,000 or $1 million or $10 million, right? It all matters to us equally how we allocate our money. And so I've really rethought allocation significantly over the last, certainly 6 months in particular, but I've really been thinking about this for over a year now. And I'm worried that, stocks are not going to perform over the next few years. And many hedge fund experts that I know, I can think of a few in particular, have all made the same claim. Ray Dalio has talked about this in many interviews, that stocks simply aren't going to offer the same returns that we've seen in the past 10 years. At least that's their belief. They don't have a crystal ball either. So I'm thinking now about the outsized return potential of Bitcoin itself, about the outsized return potential of the Abra interest account, and I'm actually reallocating my own money. And I actually did some posts online, and maybe you can go to my Twitter feed and give me some feedback as I'm thinking about even my own Bitcoin allocation. Okay, we'll see where it's going. So, a few things, right? First, if you haven't really dug in to compound interest, you're really missing the big picture as it relates to investing, right? Einstein, we'll come back to this in a second, once referred to compounding as the 8th wonder of the world. So now, Abra offers a 10% interest rate on dollar deposits, which we store as stable coins. So I created a chart here to show the impact of a 10% interest rate on my savings. If I start with 50K and hold for 10 years, of course, assuming that the interest rate holds steady, which is not guaranteed, but as you can see, my holdings increase over 85K to reach 135K total over 10 years. Again, Einstein has referred to that as that process of compounding as the 8th wonder of the world. So in a market where yield and returns and of shrinking volatility, this is actually a phenomenal deal. And it's even as the CEO of the company offering it, it's forced me to rethink my own allocation and how I think about this, to where I'm putting more money into the Abra interest account, more money into Bitcoin, and Bitcoin into an interest account earning 4% plus. And by the way, we raised rates on Ethereum to 4.5%. And as I mentioned last week, we're going to be releasing a couple more coins, hopefully next week, but it's very soon, to earn interest on. I don't want to give it all away, but we're testing them now. So again, the bottom line is if you don't think about compounding, you don't really understand how investing is supposed to work for you. Okay. Okay. So enough on compounding. As I said, we've raised rates on Ethereum. The 10% is holding steady. So that's exciting. So let me talk about this whole Bitcoin allocation for a second. I mentioned my personal allocation. I think I'm at about 10 to 12% right now. I've adjusted a few things. I sold some Bitcoin, which I regret, but I sold it at a decent price. So I'm thinking of actually significantly increasing my allocation to Bitcoin in my overall portfolio. Yeah. So, okay, let me come back to Bitcoin. So I think we're building an interesting base for the price of Bitcoin above $10,000, right? Bitcoin has been around for almost 11 years, right? That's about 3,920 days so far, right? Or maybe 3,925 days. So you might be surprised to know that Bitcoin is now closed above 10K for the last 65 days for the first time in its history. So yeah, that's a record for Bitcoin. Furthermore, Bitcoin has only been above $13,000 for about 40 days total in its existence. And that was not consecutive, of course. So this is all new territory for Bitcoin. So as the supply has increased, its market cap has continued to climb. As we know, the supply will not increase indefinitely, which is one of its main features. But that market cap is now sitting at about $200 billion. Bitcoin has been above $200 billion in market cap at some point in each of the past 3 years, which is phenomenal. It's incredible. But consolidating right now, as it has been for several weeks, above the 10K price point is extremely bullish for Bitcoin. So honestly, I was expecting more of a short-term sell-off from the highs, more of a sell-off from the Bitmex news, more of a sell-off from the Trump news, and I'm being constantly surprised about how stable Bitcoin has been through all of this. It's incredible. And this has really given me pause to say this thing wants to go higher. And why am I not putting more of my money where my mouth is? And that's what I'm probably going to be doing over the next few days and weeks. So we've also seen, and this is really interesting, we've seen evidence of declines in the amount of Bitcoin held at some of the large pure play exchanges, right? The spot exchanges, et cetera, and also the futures exchanges. This is really bullish because if people are moving Bitcoin into interest-bearing accounts like Abra, and our volumes have exploded there, or into cold storage, this means they're not looking to sell or trade. That's also extremely bullish for the price of Bitcoin and means that the available supply will continue to dwindle, right, with this trend, which is obviously bullish because the fewer sellers there are, right, that would simply mean that it's the buyers that are driving the price. Again, very bullish. So we've had some pushback this week in the public markets and amongst the crypto Twitterati on this whole stock to flow model, right? And we've talked about stock to flow here many times on Money Talks. It's all online in other YouTube shows we've done and other newsletters. I'm not going to go through it today, but I want to talk about stock to flow because it really does impact my thinking, and I want you to think about it as well. So no model is perfect, right? Everybody all the Bitcoin maximalists look at this stock to flow model like the second coming. I don't look at it that way. I have a dubious, skeptical eye on everything, and you should too, including what I say, right? No model is perfect, but and most models are garbage, but some are useful until a better model comes along. So for now, I'd say the stock to flow model is extremely useful, and maybe a better one will come along at some point. Maybe not, I don't know. But it's certainly the best one I've seen so far as it relates to the deflationary nature of Bitcoin, right, combined with the price action we've seen over the last few years. Okay, so the other thing I would point out to you is this is the price of Bitcoin versus gold versus S&P 500 year to date. In some ways, Bitcoin has been less volatile than even stocks. Certainly, if you look at the crazy stocks like Tesla, Bitcoin is way less volatile. The price performance of Bitcoin has outpaced all three, S&P, gold, and well, the other two, this year significantly, right? And who knows? It's not an indicator of the future. But like I said, it's certainly the best setup that I've seen for an investment opportunity since the early days of the dot-com era. And that is impacting how I think about asset allocation, as I said. The other thing that I find really interesting is that, and this is adding more fuel to this bullish fire, and I apologize if this sounds self-serving, but Bitcoin has never come close really to closing below this long-term 200-week moving average. And when I say moving average, those of you who aren't that technical about trading, that's simply the price average over the past 200 weeks. Okay, and like I said, Bitcoin has stayed above that trend line for its entire existence, as far as I'm aware. Right? And each time it's come close to this trend line, it's bounced relatively hard off of that line. So time will tell whether this matters or not, but it's certainly really interesting. Okay, so enough of that. Thanks for your patience as we got through some talking points this week. I apologize for those of you who are making your way to the new YouTube live stream. We had to move you over to a new URL. I have no idea what's going on, but I thank you for your patience there. You'll all be able to watch the stream from the beginning later. And we've got a whole bunch of questions being teed up. So I'm going to get to those questions now. Let's see. And can you cover the topic of where the Abra interest funds actually reside and their safety? So do they actually reside on the SmartOS device or in the cloud? And can you explain what is being done with the funds? Okay, so this is from, I think, Crypto Crunch. Nice name. All right, Crypto Crunch. So when you put money in Abra, it is being stored with one of our custodial partners, okay? If you're trading crypto, right, and if you go to the Abra app, and I'll show you here, you see the two tabs, trading account and interest account. The funds are actually being moved back and forth. The trading account partner is Bitmex, and the interest account partner is a company called Prime Trust, which is a trust company, trust bank, if you're familiar with that term. And those are our custodial partners for those funds. Now, when you invest into the interest account, so let's see here in our demo app, we have about $61,000 in PAX, which is a US dollar stablecoin. What happens is that those funds get invested in order to earn that 10% a year interest that you see in the app. Okay, so the funds don't reside on the phone, right? It's just a reference to your balance, okay? And the funds get invested via Abra's what we call lending desk, which is an investment group that looks for collateralized lending opportunities to put that stablecoin or crypto to work to earn that yield. I hope that makes sense and answers your question. Okay. So by the way, we're running kind of a weekly contest to get feedback on the show, and I think we have a winner here. I have so many questions, I can't find the winner in my notes, but I'm going to find it. I'm going to scroll down one at a time, and we're going to get to it. Okay, so William Ward asks, can you talk about the unbanked and how this relates to what Abra is trying to accomplish? That's a really interesting question, and that was very much top of mind when I started Abra, right? So the unbanked refers to traditionally people in less developed countries who don't have access to traditional financial services, and alternative service providers. So like Western Union might be an example of a service provider who provides money transfer services to people who can't use a bank account to easily send money. Like in the US, for example, migrant workers from the Philippines or Mexico, or migrant workers from India working in oil fields, things like that. When we started Abra, we really thought that this would be the biggest use case for Bitcoin. Now, times have changed significantly, and Bitcoin is really moving in the direction of being digital gold and a store of value. But other cryptocurrencies are trying to take up the mantle of enabling easy, fast peer-to-peer. Second layer technologies like Lightning are trying to add back that peer-to-peer functionality or money movement functionality on top of Bitcoin. And it looks pretty good that that's all going to work out. So I'm really excited about that. Our goal with Abra is to provide a suite of banking and investment services over time that simply replace the existing banking stack. So whether it's investing, savings, money transfer, we want you to be able to do all of it with Abra and not even have to start another app in banking. More importantly, we want you to be able to do that regardless of where you are on planet Earth, meaning anyone in the world should be able to do that. Now, we have some restrictions about which countries we can operate in legally. Certain countries we're not allowed to offer services in, like Iran and North Korea and stuff like that. But other than that, we want to do this everywhere in the world. So, William also asks, talk about competition. Can we advance Abra at a faster rate? It was effectively the question that William was asking. And William, look, as CEO, I can say a few things. One, I have an unbelievable team at Abra. We haven't been in the same room together since March, which in my entire career I've never experienced that. The team hasn't missed a beat in delivering new features. We haven't missed a beat in terms of keeping up with the market. Now, as CEO, I'm always dealing with this problem that in my mind, things never go fast enough. And my team knows how I feel about that. And it's more of a hang-up that I have as a CEO, and almost every other tech CEO I know suffers from this problem, except maybe Tim Cook, because he didn't really come up through technology. He's more of an operations guy, and that may be good for his health. But in general, you just want everything to go faster. I have never been more excited in my work career than I am right now when I look at where Abra's going in the next 12 to 18 months. It's going to be exactly what I've always wanted in banking, and is going to address exactly the problems that I've wanted to address in banking and investing, which I kind of view as the same thing, over the next year. So I'm super excited about that. Thank you for the question. By the way, I promised I would talk about the winner. So the winner for the giveaway this week is Aki. It's his Twitter handle is cryptoholly_c, and we'll publish that online, and you can claim your prize via DM. And thank you for that. And his question was, I assume it's a he, apologize if it's she, does proof of work make blockchain more secure than proof of stake? This is something we've talked about in the past. It's a complicated topic, and this is a little bit more of an investing-oriented show, but let me address it as high a level as I can. So proof of work is the software technology that Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other cryptos use today to effectively secure transactions. Miners compete by effectively playing a game, guessing a number, and that game is referred to as proof of work. And whoever wins the game, in the case of Bitcoin, every 10 minutes, not only wins new Bitcoin being mined, but wins the transaction fees associated with pending Bitcoin transactions inserted into the current block. Proof of stake replaces that game with the ability to validate transactions based upon how much of the crypto you're holding. That's a very simple, not completely accurate, but basically accurate explanation of proof of stake. In other words, I can prove that I'm holding this stake of the currency, and that allows me to validate a transaction and potentially even win more. So it becomes kind of self-serving over time. So the more you hold, the more you can win, and the more you can earn. Okay? Inherently, proof of work should always be more secure. However, when it comes to decentralized systems, there is a direct correlation between inefficiency and security. By and large, the more secure something is, the more inefficient it is. And that's a big problem. Okay? That's what causes Bitcoin to use so much electricity, right? And so much, in theory, wasted computing power. I'm not opining on whether that's good or bad. I'm just saying it is what it is. Bitcoin is the most secure computing system ever created by man and woman for a reason. Okay? It wasn't created to be efficient. It wasn't created to use minimal amounts of electricity. It was created to be decentralized, and the cost of decentralization in this case is inefficiency. Okay? So proof of work is more efficient in terms of, is more secure than proof of stake. And proof of stake actually, what it does is it basically gives up a little of that decentralization, right, to have a more efficient, more scalable system, right? There is an inverse correlation between scalability and security when it comes to decentralization, right? So the more scalable your solution is, by definition, the less secure it's going to be. So by definition, proof of stake is definitely going to be a little bit less secure, but they're trying to solve different problems in this case, right? So if you think about Ethereum going to proof of stake as the world's computer, it doesn't really need to be as secure as Bitcoin, which is meant to be the world's money. Hopefully that distinction makes sense. Okay. Mark asks, thank you very much for your great answer to my question last week regarding Uniswap's market cap to trading volume. Your insight helped me. I'm glad it worked out. And Jonathan Clark asks, what are the risks of losing any funds in the interest accounts? Jonathan, that is a fantastic question. It's probably the most important question you can ask as it relates to the Abra interest account. So when this is not an FDIC insured bank account, when you put money in the Abra interest account, right, you're definitely taking principal risk. Let's be clear on that. Now, I have a lot of money in there and I know what risk I'm taking, but I'm also extremely comfortable putting money in there, probably even more so than a bank, because I'm actually getting a great reward for putting my money in there. I'm not really getting much of a reward for putting my money in a bank. The bank is getting all the reward. The bank is basically doing the same thing we're doing, except that if they screw it up, the government backstops them. And the bank gets to keep the profits, not you. With Abra, you're getting to keep the profits. So we put that money to work for you in a way that a bank does, except, like I said, in the case of a bank, they're the ones keeping the profits. Here, we're also putting the advantage of crypto-based lending, which is how we generate the yield, is that we can get collateral from borrowers. And if the market moves against that collateral, we can sell it in real time. If a bank takes your house as collateral, the bank cannot sell the house in real time. They have to put the house on the market, and if the price is tanking, they have a major problem. If we have collateral from a borrower, we can sell that collateral like that. And that's a big advantage we have, and in some ways makes this safer even than traditional lending and borrowing. Okay, let's see. Lots of questions here. Oh, I'm reminded, if you're on YouTube, and again, I apologize for the YouTube problems today, we'll get it right next week. Click the like or subscribe button on the YouTube channel. That helps promote Abra within that community. Getting lots of questions about Bitmex. What do I think about regulator this and regulator that? I don't want to spend too much more time on Bitmex today. I'll take a couple more questions on that, and then I want to really focus on helping you make money, which is really what this show is about. But this does affect that a little bit, so I want to spend some time on it. Can you discuss the implications of the CFTC charges against crypto platform Bitmex to the price of Bitcoin and other cryptos? This is from Warley. Warley, I talked about this earlier. I am amazed, and I'm going to go back to my trading account and click on Bitcoin. I am amazed that the price of Bitcoin has been as stable as it has been. Now, you know, there's no bigger fan of Bitcoin than me, right? But I'm also a realist. So if I look at the 1 month price of Bitcoin, it's down 12%, but that's from a major run up, right? If you look at where we were versus the March lows, Bitcoin has basically doubled, and it's up 30% for the year, right? I don't know what else is up, maybe Tesla, right, which is way more volatile than Bitcoin right now, is up more than that. But this is amazing in terms of how steady in the big picture relative to its history Bitcoin has been in the face of all of this market uncertainty. It's very encouraging to me, and it seems to be washing off all of the news, or brushing off, all of the news around Bitmex, around COVID/Trump, and even the elections, and the uncertainty that everybody talks about in the traditional stock markets. Again, very encouraging. So, Crypto Watch also asks, what are the chances that the Bitrex will get shut down or effectively ruined? I really don't know. It's not a US based company, so the US government doesn't have an off switch to shut Bitmex off. It's still running as of last night. I haven't checked this morning. I see no reason why it wouldn't be. Bitmex uses multi-sig technology to store the crypto. The crypto is not online, so they've never been hacked. So that's the one really good thing about Bitmex. The bad thing is you can only withdraw your funds like once a day, which is crazy. So if you want to sell back to real cash, it's impossible to do that in real time. You have to wait once a day. Anyway, and of course, Crypto Watch asks as a follow-up question, how will this affect Abra? Again, our volumes were up again last month. I don't really see this affecting Abra at all. We don't really service that kind of extreme gambler. Obviously, if you're investing in crypto, you're speculating a little bit, but our users tend to be a little bit more rational and aren't really doing that kind of extreme gambling. So I don't think that this will affect Abra at all, to be honest with you. Certainly doesn't affect our interest accounts, and we offer so many more cryptocurrencies than anybody out there on the trading side. I think we're up to like 150 now. That at Bitmex I think offers 4. So it really doesn't matter to us that much, except for the fact that we think that the more competition that's out there, the better it is for the space. We just want everybody to follow the same rules. So if you're operating crypto and you're not following the law, it's going to catch up to you at some point. And we want everybody to survive in this space. And it's hard enough as it is, without all the negative press and everything else. And so we hope everyone will do the right thing and kind of create a level playing field for all of us to operate the same. Okay, a lot of questions here. I'm sorry we're not getting to all of them as fast as I'd like. Let me go a little bit faster here. Victor asks, can you give some more details on the security of TrueUSD and how is it protected? Will there be a web dashboard? And can you talk about the limits on ACH transfers? So lots of questions. I already talked about the TrueUSD and interest account security and how we invest there, so I'm not going to go over that again. The risks are that you're making an investment. However, I think this investment is better than a high yield savings account as a bank, because most of those loans have some type of collateral in crypto which can be sold immediately, whereas the collateral at a bank cannot be sold immediately unless it's a stock or something like that. Will there be a web dashboard? That's a good question. That's something that we've talked about. We have different ways of managing these investments, and so it's not easy to create a simple web view that gives you real-time view into this, but it's definitely something that we would like to do in the future to give you more real-time visibility. But you can go into your Abra app anytime and see the value of the investment. You get the push notifications every Monday morning. It's my favorite message of the week is I get all these push messages to my Abra app about my interest that I've earned from the previous week. And can you talk about the limits on ACH transfers increasing? Excellent question, Victor. So we've got some good news for you coming up on ACH transfers. In the coming few weeks, you will see significant increase in the limits on ACH, and that's just the beginning. Even from there, our goal is to increase those limits over time. This is a US specific question. ACH is the kind of quick one-day bank transfer, quick relative to the US, one-day bank transfer into your Abra wallet. If you use Venmo, for example, or Square, you're probably familiar with ACH. ACH is ripe with fraud, and so when you come in via ACH, you can use the funds immediately, but there will be a delay on withdrawing those funds. But you can put the money in the interest account, and you can continue to earn interest forever, and including during any delay on the withdrawal period. Okay? True Exodus asks, let's see. So what is Abra doing about SEC and FINRA that outline regulatory compliance issues for crypto custodians? Okay, so this is another complicated issue, because traditionally, if you are operating an exchange for crypto that just deals with spot prices, meaning I want to sell Bitcoin at this price and there's no derivative involved, like a futures contract, the SEC actually doesn't regulate that business. Okay, that business is generally regulated in the U.S. by MSBs, state money transmitter agencies, and also by FinCEN, and internationally by kind of e-money regulations. Okay, in the U.S., the SEC will regulate crypto when the tokens are securities, when you're securitizing an existing investment, kind of like what Grayscale does for Bitcoin, if that makes any sense to you, But other than that, that's not their purview. If the crypto is offered as a derivative contract, like they do on Bitmex, it's the CFTC, the Commodities Future Trading Commission, that actually regulates that world. So Abra has lawyered up like any smart company should do in this space, and we spend a lot of time with our lawyers vetting every feature in our system to make sure that it's compliant from US regulatory perspective, because that seems to be the superset of global regulation that we need to worry about. And then of course we dig in on country specific issues as we need to from there. So let's see. Talked a lot of questions about how the interest account works. Again, you're basically, to generate that 10% yield on your dollar investment, you're effectively making a high yield interest loan, and then Abra's investment committee / lending desk is putting that money to work for you to generate that yield, right? And it is, as far as I can tell, the best deal out there, right? And so that's why I'm continually putting more money into that Abra interest account, okay? So we got a lot more questions coming in. Let's see. Do you know if it's possible, Cecilia asks, do you know if it's possible to connect any Swedish, or I'll extend that by saying European bank account to Abra yet? And she's a Swedish Abra fan, she says. Well, we thank you for that. We have a lot of users in Sweden and all across Europe. We are in the final phase of testing international bank wires. So you will be able to do large transfers into the Abra interest and trading accounts. Later, we will try to get to adding SEPA, which is kind of the European ACH, back to Abra. But the first goal was to get international wires supported so that we could deal with every country in the world. And that's the focus right now. So yeah, the answer is yes, you will be able to wire money from your bank account into Abra very soon. Stay tuned. It's something that I have been hoping to get into Abra for a long time, and I'm excited to say that it's almost ready for you. And Randy G asks, are you backed by Max Kaiser's investment company? Randy, yes, Max has a small investment via his investment vehicle in Abra. I don't remember how much. It's a token investment. He's not a major shareholder, but we love Max, and he and I don't always agree. We've had some public disagreements recently, but I love Max, and we love the online banter, and I'm thrilled to have him involved in Abra. And does Paxos redeem its current currency for physical gold? That's from Doug. Doug, Abra has nothing to do with gold investing today. The Pax that we support is actually a US dollar stablecoin. Pax also has a Pax G, which is Pax Gold. Abra doesn't yet support that crypto. So when we talk about Pax, we're talking about dollars, not gold. Okay, so I hope that clarifies that. Would love to eventually support gold, by the way, as one of the interest accounts. Don't have it yet, but it's something that we might look at in the future. Prisoner Zero, interesting name, asks, you mentioned the power of compounding. Why does the app display the APR rather than telling the more powerful story and the higher annual rate? That's a really good question. The challenge is that compounding is in the future, and we're telling you the rate for today. So to actually show you the power of compounding on a screen without like a whole bunch of charts and other things is very difficult, almost impossible, right? That's why I showed the chart there. Maybe what we could do is if you click on the, like today, if you click on the interest account, if I click on like my interest earning Pax, it shows me the interest paid and all the recent interest transactions that have come with that account. Maybe it could show a chart about the power of compounding in the future at the current rate. But you know, for kind of legal reasons, it's very important that people understand the difference between the rate we're paying today and what you might get in the future based upon the rate. And remember that the chart I showed you is theoretical because the rate could change in the future. So we want to be very careful about the message we send and be as completely honest and above board as possible. But education here is critical because it blows my mind how often I talk about compounding, even to well-educated people. And really the reason for that is that our schools are awful about financial education. How many of you had a class in investing and financial management in high school or college? And unless you have an MBA, the answer is zero, okay? That is crazy. And I don't understand why that still is, but one of the responsibilities that we have at Abra, that we feel at Abra, is to provide open, honest education about the opportunities and the risks. So you'll never hear me talk about one without the other. And if I do, please remind me online, because I should be talking about both at the same time. So somebody asks, by the way, thank you for that, Prism Zero. I think that point about compounding being the eighth wonder of the world is huge. Bluebee asks, what are the top altcoins that you recommend on Abra? So I personally don't recommend anything. I tell people there are lots of websites like Abra that explain altcoins in detail. I love the technology that Abra, or the technology competition that altcoins bring to the table. There are several that I'm actively tracking myself. I mentioned that I'm a fan of Cardano, ADA. I'm a fan of Digibyte. I'm a fan of Monero. I'm a fan of Zcash, the snarks that that Zcash uses. The technology underlying the private transactions, I think, is a big deal in hard to transact markets like Venezuela and Argentina, Turkey, which is becoming problematic. Do your homework, right? Try not to be, look, if you have some money to speculate in literally like at the gambling table and you want to invest in the latest and greatest DeFi tokens and you're comfortable losing 100% of that money, that's fine. But if you're looking for a long-term return, look at projects that represent a viable use case or opportunity to help mankind over time. And usually often the money will follow, just like any other startup. Think of these projects as startups in that regard. You're simply getting access to startups by investing in these tokens. Now, they're not necessarily securities where they're giving you profits in the company, because we don't enable securities in our system, but it's the usage of the tokens, right? And the application of the tokens to real life problems, which in some ways, in my opinion, is better than owning a stock, because you're actually doing more for mankind if the project is useful than even owning a share of the company. So think about it that way and do your homework. And we'll continue to bring you more updates on the projects that are interesting to us over time. All right, let's see. We have a whole bunch of users. Wow, we got users all over the place. So we got a lot of people watching on Twitch. We got a lot of people on Periscope, a lot of people on Facebook. We had some problems with YouTube, but the number there is going up, so that's fantastic. Let's see, let's take a few more questions. Let's see, what do we got here? I want to jump around a little to some people who asked questions earlier. I have to scroll in my list here because I've got literally like 200 questions here to go through, and I want to try to ask some new questions. How does cryptocurrency affect the changing real estate landscape? That's an interesting question. I don't think too much about real estate as it affects crypto. There are a couple of companies, I'm not that familiar with how they work, that are trying to tokenize real estate, kind of like the way you would create a security out of a credit, for example. But I'm not that familiar with how they work. I think the integration of physical assets into things like NFTs is probably, for me at least, the more interesting question. I've talked about NFTs in the past, or non-fungible tokens. The most prominent example of NFTs would be collectibles, because they're all unique. But real estate is also a potentially interesting example of an NFT, because every house is unique, right? So you could have partial fractional ownership of real estate that you could trade via these NFTs. So NFTs and non-fungible tokens are something we're going to be talking a lot about in the future. You're going to see some tweet storms from me on NFTs. I love the topic. I think its time is coming. It's a little bit early still, but if you really want to get in on something, sometimes it's okay to be a little bit early. You don't want to be too early, because then you can lose all your money. But if you want to make an outsized bet in the future, NFTs are interesting to me. And not something that Abra supports directly, but it's personally interesting, and I think we should all know about it. Okay, so that was from Michigan, Mitch RBY. Sorry if I don't pronounce that right. And then the second thing that Mitch talks about is the future of Ethereum. Can you comment on that? So I have talked about the future of Ethereum ad nauseum on this show for the last 2 months. I'm bullish on Ethereum in the future. I think that the DeFi craze in August, which cooled off dramatically in September, showed why we desperately need these 2.0 upgrades to Ethereum, and we need them to work, right? Ethereum could not handle the load of just a few of these DeFi exchanges. If it can't handle that, it's got a big problem if we want to use it for traditional banking applications, for example, via stablecoins. Okay, it simply won't work. So we need Ethereum upgrades over the next 18 to 24 months to work flawlessly, right? And that's why I think they're doing the right thing by making sure they get this right. And I realize it's caused a lot of frustration with delays, but I think that doing it, taking a step back, doing it right, even if it means delays, will ultimately be worth it. The migration to proof of stake in the first step is absolutely key. I believe that is scheduled to start in Q4 and may get pushed to Q1. That will actually take probably a year, because what needs to happen is we all need to basically start staking Ethereum in our wallets, and we need enough people to be staking in order to turn on proof of stake. Because you can't just turn on proof of stake and have nobody be staking anything. The system will be completely unsecure. So that will take some time. So I think it will actually take 18 to 24 months from now for the rollout of 2.0 in Ethereum to be complete. But when it happens, I think it will change banking. I really do. I think the competition from Cardano and the scalability that Cardano represents, its next generation, I forget the word, starts with the G, the upgrade that's coming, and we should get Charles on here to talk about it at some point soon, is the best potential competitor to Ethereum that I've seen so far. It's not baked yet, but the potential is there, and they've been very open, and he's been very open about his plans, and I like that a lot. So I'm bullish on Ethereum and the coming competition. We're a couple of years away from having that world computer that you can really build full-fledged banks on. I think other technologies like Stellar that allow you to quickly and easily generate new tokens that Abra is also working with are super interesting and exciting. We'll see where it all goes. But it's not just Ethereum. I'm excited about a lot of stuff going on in crypto right now. And as I mentioned before, I've never been more excited in my working career than I am about Abra's roadmap right now. It really represents everything that I've wanted in fintech and online services for the last 15 years. And I think the timing has finally caught up with the technology, or I should say the technology has finally caught up with the timing of what I wanted, or I don't know if I got it backwards, but you get my point. Okay. Daniel asks, will we ever have the opportunity to invest in Abra as an entity? So Daniel, I can't answer that directly because I don't know who you are. You know, if Abra may go public someday, we have no plans. I have no idea. Maybe it won't. I don't know. Maybe it'll be private forever. Who knows? But you know, we have done crowdsourced funding in the past. I'm not offering anything here. I don't offer securities here at all. It's not our business. So if we do anything that would involve any kind of crowdsourced funding, we would certainly announce it. We're not announcing that today. So sorry for the non-answer, except to say we have no plans right now, but things could change in the future. All right. And the update to 5% interest on Ethereum is now live in the Abra app. So if you go into the Abra app and go to interest rates or the interest account, as you'll see here, I will bring it up for you. You'll see here that our interest rate on ETH is now 5%. Et voila. Okay, super cool. Thanks to the Abra lending desk and investment team that worked super hard to, you know, getting these interest rates stable and up every week is a lot of work. Doesn't seem that hard. It's a lot of work because we can't just basically take all of your incoming crypto and make one big investment. We have to break it up into smaller investments, and the more deposits we get, the more work that is, right? And we're managing tens of millions now, and that's only after a few weeks. We haven't been at this that long. So the rate at which the deposits are coming in is actually going up. So that's exciting, but it's really, you know, challenging the team, and they've responded and executed flawlessly. So kudos to them on that. Farah asks, do you plan to add staking to your platform? When can I stake my ADA Cardano, SUB, ETH, and soon ETH with you? And that's a great question, Farah. I can't announce a date. It's something that we're looking at. Certainly when Ethereum is there, it'll be relatively straightforward for us to offer staking when it's live because we already offer Ethereum on the interest account side. We don't offer Cardano yet on the interest account side. It's something that I really want to do, and I don't have a date on that yet, but yeah, we'll get to it, and hopefully sooner rather than later. Okay, so Emmanuel asks, can you talk about any delisting risks related to Monero? I assume that this has to do with the IRS and whole privacy issue. That's tough. I think that software is protected speech. The U.S. Supreme Court has opined on that. The partners that we use for custody are licensed MSBs that the government would have a very difficult time justifying. Now, if the government went to our partner and said, we would strongly encourage you to delist this, that's not an order. They can't force them to do that. But they might look at that and say, hey, okay, we don't want to tick them off, so maybe we'll do it. But I think they're going to have a very hard time forcing anyone to not be able to use Monero, right? Anything that's used for good can be used for bad. Anything, the internet itself, anything in the world, right? That doesn't justify somebody saying that we can't use it for good, right? So keep that in mind. I don't think Monero is at risk in the short term, but it's a very fair question, and we should talk about it. Right? Do we have any updates to the APY for cryptocurrencies this month from Michael? Michael, I think I got to it before I saw your question, so you see that we're holding steady at 10% on dollars, and 5% on ETH, and 4.5% on Bitcoin. I think those are all industry-leading rates, so have at it, right? We are super excited about those rates. They're the best in the world that you're going to get, and hopefully they will hold steady over the coming weeks. Let's see, we've got some more questions coming in. I also missed some at the beginning, I've been told, so I'm going to scroll back up. Let's see. How do you deposit, if I want to make a large, let me take a scroll back, step back. If I want to make a large deposit into Abra, I'm reading here, how do I do that? Okay, so the easiest way to do a large deposit is at the bottom of the screen. You see where it says add money, okay? And you see where it says bank wire transfer. Today that works in the US, soon it will work in every country in the world. You click on bank wire transfer and the app will give you deposit instructions, okay? Now don't use my instructions because the money's gonna come to me. I don't mind if you wanna send me money, but you should use your instructions so that the money goes to you. Everybody has a slightly different screen so that we know who to send the money to. So this will have no limits. You can deposit $100 or $1 million, it makes no difference. And we've had people do deposits in the millions of dollars, and we've had people do $10 deposits. It really makes no difference to us, okay? You earn the same interest either way, and that's how you do it, right? So when the money lands in the account, you'll get a push message to your phone, and you can go to your portfolio. So now if you, let's say, I have here $130 in my TrueUSD account. Let's say I want to move that, I just deposited that via bank wire into my Abra app and I want to earn interest on it. I would go into the interest account tab in the upper right. I would click on TrueUSD. See, you see the fourth item down says TrueUSD. And now I click on add and I simply transfer the 100 and click on use the entire balance. Excuse me. And I can transfer the entire $132 into my interest account. Okay, I'm not going to do that in this case because I use this for demos, and so we'll leave it there. But that's how you do it. It's super simple, and I use it myself. I'm continually depositing more money in, not only for demos but for my own wealth management, and I love it. It's really changed how I think about managing my money. Okay, so we're at 10 o'clock. It's been a crazy week. I don't even know what I've missed just doing this show in the last hour. I've got dozens of push messages in Twitter, so God knows what I've missed. And yeah, so have a safe week. Wear your masks, and encourage everybody else to wear their masks. We will get through this. In the meantime, thank you to the Abra team for the hard work, and put that money to work, earning that 10%. On your dollars, your 4.5% on Bitcoin, and we'll see you next week on Money Talks. Thanks for the support, everyone. Have a great weekend, and we will see you soon. Take care.